Yo, what's going on? Pope Nico back with another video. Today, I'm going to be reacting to a scary video, kind of a scary video. 10 body horror movie fates worse than death. So, like horrible ways to die in a movie. A lot of scary movies are going to be on here. I like scary movies. I'm into scary movies. Probably going to be some Final Destination on here. What else? Probably Saw, maybe. Let's get right into it. 10 horror movie fates worse than death. Oh my god, that's not...
More often than not in horror, anyone who's subjected to some kind of horrible torture or mutilation dies long before the end of the film. Alien horrors frequently see scientists devoured before they can even make it to the opening credits, and popular horror tropes dictate that anyone moving into a haunted country house or checking out a weird noise in the night is guaranteed to meet their end. It really is quite difficult to survive. In a way, it's more of a mercy, because some of the things that characters endure would ensure they would live a miserable life if they somehow survived. Sometimes, though, there's an especially awful fate reserved for our central characters. They can be forced to live. This is definitely worse than it sounds, though, because their woeful existences will be filled with unimaginable amounts of horror and pain. So why don't we take a look at some of the best examples of this? I'm Amy from What Culture, and here's 10 body horror movie fates worse than death. 10. The Beach House. 2019's The Beach House was the directorial debut for Jeffrey Brown, and he wasted no time in getting stuck into a bit of body horror. Whilst on holiday staying in a beachfront villa, two couples fall victim to a toxic fog that descends in the night. On inhaling the fog, you slowly become rabid. At first, we see the older woman of the group descending into madness and foaming at the mouth. However, this is not the worst of it. After the younger couple, Emily and Randall, manage to escape, they find refuge in a house where Emily ventures into the basement looking for supplies. Down below, she sees what is to become one day of those taken by the fog. An amorphous humanoid blob crouches over a corpse, slowly devouring it, or maybe becoming one with it, gradually becoming mad and rabid and then melting into a blob of cannibalistic goo. Definitely has to be up there with one of the worst ways to live out your days. 9. Rabid, 2019. This remake of the 1977 David Cronenberg original follows a young woman's descent into vampiric bloodlust after receiving some experimental stem cell treatment. Turns out this is no mistake side effect though, and that her doctor did this to her knowingly. If that doesn't make him sound crazy enough, we get introduced to his wife. Once the couple found out that her cancer was incurable, she donated her body to his cause, and the way he chose to honor that was to turn her into a grotesque mass of flesh stuck to a basement wall. And they say romance is dead. Her body is a shell of what it once was, with entrails and tendrils breaking from what was probably once a ribcage. Unfortunately, in immortalizing his wife this way, he accidentally also made her cancer immortal. So were it not for her murder at the hands of our leading lady, or maybe more of a mercy killing, she would have been destined to spend the rest of her days riddled with cancer, with her body mutating to the point where all of her humanity is completely gone. 8. Society. Compared to a lot of others on this list, this film is admittedly much more funny than it is scary, but that doesn't take away from the fact it contains some of the most cursed bits of body horror ever committed to screen. In a nutshell, Billy suspects that his family and other members of the local high-class society are up to no good, and his investigation leads him to find out that he's completely correct. Sometimes it can feel like the world's richest class are a different species altogether, and this film takes that idea in its most literal form. Billy discovers his family and their friends are aliens who engage in a weird ritual where they melt together in a pool of body parts and skin, sucking the nutrients out of one poor human soul. It's honestly up to you to decide which side of this is worse, to be the human getting the life sucked out of them, or to be an alien destined to spend their life melting into some kind of deformed monster. The third option, of course, is to be the poor sod forced to watch, in which case we've all lost today. 7. The Fly. Now, we've already visited a Cronenberg remake, but we would be remiss to get through this list without an original. The Fly is a 1986 Cronenberg classic, a story of a man working on developing pods that allow you to teleport between them. When he teleports himself, an error means that he accidentally fuses with a fly that was also present in the pods, and soon he begins to mutate into an insect-human hybrid. His deterioration is grotesque. Fingernails falling off, vomiting acid, his jaw even gets torn straight off his face. It's honestly no surprise that by the end he's begging for the release of death, even if by that point he has also managed to merge himself with a metal door. To live as a huge, tumorous insect man is surely one of the most disgusting fates, but then he does mention that after a certain point you would just lose all humanity and be controlled by primitive impulses. Flies don't really have a lot of thoughts, right? So maybe it would be kind of peaceful. 6. The Human Centipede. This list simply couldn't exist without acknowledging the movie that was probably a lot of people's first venture into body horror. First coming out in 2009, this film quickly became infamous, which isn't really very surprising when you know what it's about. The clue's in the name. A deranged scientist wants to create a human centipede by joining 3 people together so they share one central digestive system. An existence as any part of a human centipede would be unbearable, but especially as the middle person, well, it can confidently be said that what seemed originally to be the worst case scenario for Lindsay, the middle segment, gets infinitely worse by the end of the film. After a suicide, a stabbing, a shootout, and a good old case of sepsis, Lindsay is the only person alive with nobody left to help her. Completely without hope, her friend dead behind her, and a corpse attached to her mouth. The movie ends with Lindsay's fate unknown. All that we do know is that the remainder of her life is going to be completely miserable. 5. Tusk. Keeping with the theme of human hybrids that shouldn't have happened, we have Kevin Smith's 2014 Tusk. A journalist, Wallace, is held captive by a crazy old man hell-bent on breathing new life into Mr. Tusk, the walrus that saved him from a shipwreck years earlier. After being stranded, the man had to eventually eat his walrus companion and has carried the guilt with him ever since. It may be a comedy horror, but there's nothing funny about the nightmares this film prompts. Seeing a man turned into a walrus with a pelt made of human skin and tusks of his own tibia bones. By the time anyone comes to rescue Wallace, he has been conditioned to think and act like a walrus. The only place that they can really put him is in a wildlife sanctuary, where he's fed mackerel and lives the simple life of a walrus. Simple life, maybe. Happy, peaceful life? No.
I mean, that's the life he wanted to live.
He cries for his lost love that he still has humanity within him, but he's destined to spend his days as a walrus made of the skin of dozens of murder victims, chewing his mackerel with bits of his own leg bones. 4. Contracted. This film has its own take on the classic zombie angle. Instead of looking at an outbreak, just focusing on one woman. This patient 0 is given the deathly disease from a man who recently violated a biohazardous corpse, and we watch as she becomes more zombified with each passing moment. Her body falls apart and starts rotting, giving her many of the typical features we would associate with the zombie appearance. She doesn't understand what's happening to her as her hair and nails fall out, her eyes become bloodshot, and she bleeds heavily with maggots growing inside her. Not only is she slowly becoming a terrifying monster, but she's also just been through a breakup, so really how much worse could it get for her? It would be terrifying to be decaying from the inside out, but not know the cause or the end result. By the end of the film, without even realizing it, she's lost all human qualities, going so far as to lunge at her own mother with murder in her eyes. 3. Inseminoid. In a galaxy far, far away, a group of 12 scientists are doing some excavation work on the ruins of an ancient civilization. It's not long, however, before things start getting spooky. After one crew member goes mental and causes the death of another, 2 team members decide it's probably fine to just go back and collect some more samples. Surprise, one of them's killed and the other, Sandy, gets impregnated by an alien. The planet's chemical intelligence overtakes her and makes makes her murder and disembowel her friends and crewmates, developing superhuman
Even
strength and
aliens
a
are
tolerance
just
to the planet's
horrible
hostile
people.
atmosphere. Because of the whole alien aspect, this pregnancy isn't the normal 9-month package. Instead, within a matter of hours, Sandy gives birth to twins who are just as messed up as she is. It seems a pretty rough deal to be forcefully impregnated by an alien, have your brain eaten up by chemical intelligence, and then still push out 2 monster babies. If it weren't for a crewmate strangling Sandy to death, she would have continued to live under the control of the chemicals, feasting on the flesh of her friends and in the company of her horrible little demon children. Yeah, it's gonna be a no from me. 2. Splinter. If the poster for this film alone doesn't already make you cringe a bit, then you're stronger than most. This film centers around a virulent fungus originating in rabid animals that passes from person to person, leaving them with spikes protruding from their skin, black blood, and a murderous disposition. Because this ferocious fungus takes control of any host it infects, even the dismembered body parts of the infected have minds of their own and are capable of attacking and moving independently of the body. The product of the infection really is quite disgusting and not even a bit fun to look at. To be transformed not only into a regular zombie, but one covered in spikes and filled with fungus sounds like a terrible fate, especially when your blown off body parts end up having more independence than you do as your brain falls victim to the fungus's control. 1. Antiviral. We're wrapping up this list with another Cronenberg, but not the one you expected. Antiviral is a 2012 sci-fi horror directed by David Cronenberg's son, Brandon. In this film's world, it's established practice for fans to purchase pathogens that have infected their favourite celebrities in an attempt to feel closer to them. Our main character Sid works for a clinic that provides this service, where he smuggles out pathogens to sell on the black market. A particular popular celebrity is Hannah, and after she supposedly dies from a virus he recently harvested from her, Sid gets kidnapped. He's taken to see Hannah's doctor, who reveals that she's still alive. Hannah was purposefully infected with a pathogen with the intention of it being harvested and sold as an exclusive patented strain. Sid negotiates with the patent holders to work with them in harvesting from Hannah, and so it's not actually Sid who we're looking at here for his grim outcome. His life's just fine. Hannah, on the other hand, has her cells harvested to create cloned skin and flesh, and this flesh is then infected with pathogens to sell on. All the while, Hannah is being kept alive. Stuffed in an incubator, she has her flesh constantly harvested, infected, drank from, mutilated, fetishized, anything you can think of. She's destined to spend the rest of her days being broken down into bits and sold on for profit. And that brings us to the end of our list of 10 body horror movie fates worse than death. If you can think of any more particularly horrible fates...
So that's gonna do it. Wow, that was... I feel like Final Destination has some crazy ones, but I guess not. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. I'll be back with another video very soon. And I'm out.